Hi guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about something I haven't really addressed on my channel yet, and that is not finishing books, so DNFing. And I just want to talk a bit about the different ways you can decide not to finish a book, the different reasons why you would stop reading a book, and also the different levels of putting down a book. So I don't know if you guys are the same way as I, but for example, I have different levels of DNFing. So I might put a book down because I feel like it's not for me, never gonna work for me. I just give up on it. But then there's some ways to DNF, like, I don't know, maybe it's just not the right time, or I don't have the right headspace for it, but I still want to get to it at some point. So I just want to talk a bit about this today and just walk you through a few books that I have been DNFing since the beginning of the year 2019 and tell you a bit why. So some books, as I said, I read maybe, I don't know, anything between 5 and 10% of it, and I start to get this feeling it's either not for me or it's just not what it promised to be. Of course, some books you go into and you have specific expectations, which of course is not always fair to the book, but sometimes that's just how it is, right? So one example that I had is I tried to listen to a book on audio called Steele by Lindsay Faye. And what this book set out to be is a retelling of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. So this sounded, from the premise, really interesting to me. But going into it, and I think I got maybe a third way through, I started to feel like, to me at least, that this was just really weird marketing and it was just a way of putting the book forward to pass it up as a retelling of Jane Eyre. And I didn't feel that way. So it follows this young girl, Jane, who also grows up and has to be taken care of by her aunt and her cousin, who are very obnoxious and horrible to her, very similarly to what happens in the beginning of Jane Eyre. And the difference and the twist is that she then goes onto this murderous vengeance spree against all the people that wronged her. And the premise sounded really interesting to me, but more and more it felt like this Jane Eyre selling point was just bogus, at least to me. And the plotting was all over the place and you didn't really understand what was going on. The book was trying to do too many things. It tried to do some social criticism, at the same time it tried to be a Jane Eyre retelling, and at the same time it tried to be a murder mystery and getting into the head of a psychopath. It was just too many things and they were not well structured. So yeah, that was a bit of a pity, and ultimately the book just wasn't for me, so that's why I gave up on it. The next one that I also gave up on was To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I have previously read Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf and I enjoyed it, didn't love it, but let's say I understood the merit of it as a modern classic. You might know if you've read anything by Virginia Woolf yet. Her prose is very unusual, it's very stream of consciousness, and in Mrs. Dalloway it was still manageable for me, let's say. You have mostly Clarice Dalloway and then you have a few other characters, so it didn't bother me as much that all these points of view sometimes intertwined. But in this book you follow a whole family, the Ramsay family, who take a holiday on their estate on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and you have so many different characters, and it's just gotten really hard to figure out who is talking at what moment. And I think this is the point where, for me, I can understand the merit of a book and see that it has some artistic value, but at some point it just stops my enjoyment of the reading experience. So it was just too much for me and I just don't think I can cope with it. I just don't think that it's something that will bring me much enjoyment. So that's why I decided to let it go. I might read something else by Virginia Woolf. I definitely want to pick up her non-fiction, but I think To the Lighthouse is just not for me. The next one was also one that unfortunately didn't give me what I wanted from it. And very sadly, it was also a book that a good friend of mine recommended to me, and she lent me her copy. And I was really excited to get to it because it was a time where I really needed some kind of cozy mystery. And it's 3 Bags Full by Leonie Swann. And the book gives an interesting twist on the detective genre because we follow basically a flock of sheep who are investigating the death of their shepherd. As strange as this might sound, I was really interested in how the author would pull off how a mystery could be revealed through the senses available to a sheep. So my friend had told me that it's really nice, it's really breezy, it's very entertaining, and I'm sad to say that it just didn't give me that. I did enjoy how the author tried to show how the different senses of the sheep could make them feel like something was wrong. And it's set in Ireland, and I think the setting is very well put, but the plot was just dragging too much. And unfortunately, at some point, maybe a third of the way through, I just didn't care anymore who was the murderer. So for me, that's like 3 strikes, you're out for a mystery book. That was just, yeah, a disappointment for me. And I think that's a typical example of a book that just didn't give me what I expected, and that's why I let go of it. Now I'm going to move on to some books that I DNFed, but I am still struggling to decide if I might pick them up again in the future. So the first one I'm going to mention is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is a historical novel set in 1945 Barcelona, and it follows this young boy who is the son of an antiquarian bookshop owner, and he gets introduced to this mystery in the city of Barcelona, which is the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, which is basically a hidden library where books are kept that have long been forgotten and are just waiting there for someone to take care of them and appreciate them. And this boy gets entrusted with a book, a very obscure book, and he sets himself on this quest to finding out more about the author, which it turns out all traces of him have completely been wiped out. This sounded like there would be elements of mystery, and it sounded like it's a book for book lovers. So all of this sounded great, right? Now, I read approximately 150 pages, which is about 20% of the book. And I started getting the feeling that the plot was meandering. Although there was some pressure put on this mystery and on who this author is, and you also get this antagonist who gets introduced. I'm not going to say more about it. And he has this looming presence, but still nothing is happening. And I'm sad to say that I started losing interest already at 20% into the book. And it's a 700 pages book. Another aspect that started getting on my nerves was how the main character's love interest was really objectified in so many scenes, and I just thought, it has to stop at some point. So this also didn't help me to want to pick it up again, and that's basically how I've left the book. I have it somewhere, and I'm still struggling to decide if I ever want to pick it back up. I know it's a very well-loved book, but the first impression it got me from this first 20% wasn't very appealing to me. So I would love to hear your thoughts on it if you have read it, and if you want to encourage me to pick it up. The next book I want to talk about is definitely one that falls into the category of I DNFed it because I was not in the right headspace for it. And that is The Accidental by Alice Smith. So if you know Alice Smith's prose, you might understand where I'm coming from. She has this very unusual style that's very free and doesn't have a lot of punctuation, and is full of imagery and symbolism. I previously read Autumn, the first book of her seasonal quartet, and I didn't feel any problem to get through it. And with that one, it was totally different. I really struggled to get into it. I think I read about 15% of this and then DNFed it. This follows a kind of dysfunctional family who goes to a holiday home somewhere in the east of England, and it follows them as a stranger inserts themselves into their lives and what it means for the family dynamics. So I usually love books about family dynamics, and that's what, prompted me to pick it up. But the characters were not really as well defined as I hoped. I didn't understand where the conflicts were, and the characters in general weren't really that engaging. So I started losing interest because of that, but at the same time, it felt like work to get through Ali Smith's writing, and that's why I ended up not picking it up again. So I would love to know if anyone has read this book that has read Ali Smith before, and how it is compared to her other books, because I don't know why this one is giving me so much trouble. So this is definitely one that I might pick up again. Like, I definitely want to give it another try, at least one. I don't know when, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And finally, the last one I'm going to mention is one that I've been meaning to read for so long, and I have tried to read it before, and I think I just only got through 10 pages or something. It's one I want to enjoy so much. It's dystopian fiction. It's a classic in the genre. It is supposed to discuss so many important things about genetically modified organisms and what it means for us humans and what it means if we start doing this to ourselves, and all the stuff that I'm interested in. And of course, that's Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And as I said, I read maybe 10 pages of it and completely lost interest. It was dragging like nothing. The first 10 pages are usually like how the story is set. So it's supposed to set the world and set the conflicts. And additionally, the writing was not engaging at all. It was actually quite boring. So I was so disappointed by this. And my husband did gift me a BBC dramatization of this novel a few days ago, and I'm really grateful to him, because that means I will probably listen to this first, and hopefully it will get me into the world to start with, and then I might give it another shot in written form. But this is just one, I want to read it so bad, and I want to like it so bad, and somehow I just never got over the first 10 pages. So I would love to know if anyone of you out there has read this, and if you have had the same problems as me. And basically I just want you to encourage me to finally get to it. Yeah, this is definitely one I want to give it another shot. I do know I will read it again, and I just hope this time it won't stop after the first 10 pages. So as you've seen, there is many ways in which you can DNF a book, and for me it's sometimes really hard to make it clear cut, and that's maybe because of my general feelings towards DNFing. I have a hard time completely letting go of a book. It really has to deeply annoy me or completely overwhelm me. So that's why I have always a few books that are in this kind of limbo of maybe I might pick it up again, maybe not. So I would love to know how you are dealing with DNFing. Do you DNF at all? What are your criteria for DNFing? And is it also hard for you to let go of some books? I would love to have a discussion with you in the comments down below. And also let me know which books you have DNF'd lately. And yeah, I hope you're having a good day today, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!